Being in the corner. We're live.
Yeah.
Welcome, welcome. Kristian Livolsi, this is the hot seat. You're in Manila. Welcome. I'm going to be talking this week about diving into all things Kristian Livolsi, and I'm really excited for this episode. I know I'm probably making you a little bit nervous, but when I was thinking about what we were going to talk about this week, one of the things that I often get asked is, are those stories for real? Is Christian really who he says he is with, so many different things in your career and your journey? And I thought, let's break this down today. Let's talk about this on a hot seat episode. So, welcome to this week's episode of the hot seat that is all about you, Kristian Livolsi.
Great. Just the way I like it. Always about me, right?
Why not? I can feel you squirming in that seat. I'm making you uncomfortable
I
already.
am I am uncomfortable. It's funny, I don't have a problem talking about myself in certain settings, but I really dislike it actually talking about
Mm.
myself in general. Like I use it if I have to talk about myself to be able to explain things to people, but when I then get asked, it's kind of really awkward.
Yes. All right. Well, it is my job today to make you feel as least amount of awkwardness as possible. And I'm going to sort of provide a little bit of context of why I've come up with the question that I have. Same format. We've got three questions. The first question I wanted to ask you, Christian, was just a little bit of a timeline of your career. And I think this all came about because I've heard some Gordon Ramsay stories and we've heard some investment banking stories and then some restaurant stories. And I know that this is a huge, long journey, but in the most succinct version, can you give us a rundown of how did you go from this diverse amount of different industries to gain the experience that you have?
Well, I think we've got to start with and I have this is trying to keep it tight is going to be the challenge, but I've been working and making money since I was 12 years old. And not because of some, you know, crazy ass entrepreneurial stories. I never had a lemonade stand or shit like that. I just went and worked. I liked money. I came from a family of working class parents, and my grandparents were immigrants, and so I from an early age knew that hard work paid off. I've learnt to realize that smart work pays off better than hard work. It's taken me 35, 40 years, but so I think that's really important. And after leaving high school, and I was never very good at school. I was always in trouble, and so the school system and I just didn't fit in together. But I was very fortunate that I went to a great school in St. Peter's College, and for the last 4 years of my schooling career, after I got expelled from a handful of two and suspended from more, but I learned some really good values being at that school, and I made some incredible friendships. And I'm one of those really lucky people that I have um, a lot of friends that I went to school with, a lot. And it's our 30-year reunion this year. And we're really all looking forward to seeing each other. And everyone's flying in from all over the world. So that's really exciting. That's in November. And I can't wait to see so many people that have gone on to incredible careers in their own rights.
Mm.
And also, establish really, good families and children. So after high school, I had a choice. I got into uni, but realized that that wasn't for me early on. And um, Dr. Laurie, who was the careers counselor at St. Peter's College, was a really good friend with the late Rex Lippman, Dr. Rex Lippman, fellow of the school and fellow of the Swiss Hotel Association. And it's a very successful man in his own right and a wonderful mentor of mine. And he said, "Look, I've got an opportunity for you to get to be involved in the International College of Hotel Management. You come from a family of caterers and hospitality people, the Swiss Hotel Association, and also at the same time, you'll be able to do Le Cordon Bleu and get your your culinaire du hotelier from there, which is the cooking side. And never wanted to be a chef. I can tell you that right now, and I never really wanted to be in hospitality. And there's another whole story to how that decision making process came about. It was
Mm.
me saying a prayer and opening up the Satanic book and pointing my finger, and that's what it landed on too. And I thought, oh my God, this is destiny, and destiny it was. I went off to play rugby in Europe, then came back and then started studying, and then went back to Europe to play, and scored an internship role at Claridge's in London, probably one of the most famous hotels in the world. If you're rich
Mhm.
and famous, you know about Claridge's. and that was the clientele. At the same time, I got a stint at Gordon Ramsay's restaurant Aubergine, and I worked alongside his protege Marcus Waring at L'Orange. And I really learnt the hustle and bustle of pressure, but also working with incredibly brilliant, talented people. And it was like, holy
Mm.
crap, A players exist and they're passionate. And you go back, very few people knew who Ramsay was in 1995 and 1996, and very few people knew who Marcus Waring was. And Marcus was a wonderful mentor in that very short time that I spent there. I came back to Australia and I worked at the number one hotel in Australia, the Observatory, which was ironically the general manager was an ex-Claridge's lad, and so that made me getting the role relatively easy. Patrick Griffin, I think was his name, amazing general manager. I don't know where he is today, but amazing human, and really allowed me to explore the different areas of the hotel. We also had St. Clair, who was a two-hat former chef of the Kennedy family as well, a Galileo restaurant. So I was able to get my craft in there at night time and just check out what everyone was doing. I then came back to Adelaide and went and spent some time working at the Park Royal and the Playford, and then did some rounds in restaurants. I was very overqualified by this point as a 20-year-old boy, and found it very hard to find a job. And I never really wanted to be in hospitality, so I was always trying to get out of the industry. Okay,
Mm.
and this is kind of like, and I didn't really see beyond being a waiter, a manager, or a chef. And it wasn't until I was
Yeah.
working for the late Bill Sparr, who later became my mentor and a dear friend. He lost his battle to cancer, unfortunately, 15 years ago now. The industry really misses him, and a lot of people do. He was a former banker uh, who um, who then started the biggest hospitality group in South Australia. And I kind of was always like, yeah, that'd be cool to be like Bill. And then Bill one day said to me at the Entrepreneur of the Year finalists awards, "You don't want to be like me. Get out of this industry." And unfortunately, I didn't take his advice that time and found myself in a situation. But while working for Bill, I little did I know I was being headhunted by patrons at the Red Ochre, which was at the time one of the best restaurants in Australia. The originally started by Andrew Filkey, who was a BBC chef. Uh, Amazing, best team in the country. Everything about that place was phenomenal, and I was working as a section waiter up the top at the back of the restaurant, overlooking the Torrens River. So magnificent back then, um, and I didn't know that I was being interviewed by some investment bankers. They had come to have dinner. They had such a great time. They were all American, and they left me a really large tip. And I was like, oh, I must have done a good job. Anyway, they came back the week after and the week after, and the next two were actually interviews. I didn't know that. And so at the end of the third one, I thought, these guys are being really, I've just lost Simone. So hang on a sec, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just see if I can bring her back. Um, I'm just going to see if she dials back in, but I'll continue telling the story because we are recording and we are live. There she is. Um, Simone, I've just continued telling the story as we
Yeah.
lost you,
Keep
but
going.
I think that so what happened is these guys were from the world, one of the world's largest investment banks, and they just said to me, this chief executive officer of the region, he's like, "You're way too good to be a waiter. Like, what on earth are you doing
Mm.
here? You are like this unbelievable salesperson." I'm like, "Yeah, whatever. You're acting really weird. I'm not cool with this." And anyway, he said, "This was an interview. We're going to be sending you. Give us your home address and your phone number." And I'm like, "No." He's like, "Seriously, we're going to send you some business class ticket to come to Singapore for a proper interview with the CEO of HR. We want to take a risk." And I'm like, I know nothing about. I didn't even know who these guys were. And so anyway, I went to Sydney. I went to Singapore, sorry. And after a grueling 4 or 8 hour interview, I don't know if I can count the drinking time as part of the interview because with these guys you never knew. We drank two
Mm.
bottles of whiskey, McCullum actually. It's my first experience of drinking $1,000 bottle of whiskey, and I got the job. And I spent 12 weeks traveling Asia, doing an internship where I had to get on the phones and sell. And honestly, I didn't think I was going to get past the first week. I sucked. was going to bed every night crying, not sure why I couldn't do what I'd said I did. And then my brain went into entrepreneurship mode, and I never thought I was an entrepreneur. And I'm like, okay, let's work the problem like a Navy SEAL.
Mhm.
And I did, and I ended up becoming the most successful intern that they'd had at that time. I don't even know now what's happened. I got something like 42 deals done in that period, and it was just about asking the right questions and talking to the best people within the the investment room.
Mm.
Anyway, long story short, I then went another 12 weeks and actually came to Manila. Went and spent some time here running things and learning from some of the best guys here. And then they threw me in the deep end. And I think because of the experiment, they wanted to see if a 21-year-old boy could survive in Saudi Arabia. So I ended up going over there and working for the Intercon Hotel Group, looking at their private equity situation. We own the real estate. And so it was all about increasing the EBITDAs. So it was like, yep, you go over there, see. And I'll never forget, Gunter Grigolite was the general manager for the region. And he almost threw me out of his office. He said, why the fuck have they sent me, big German dude? Why have they sent me this fucking man child with half a beard? And I was like, dude, give me 6 weeks. Let me prove myself. And yeah, we nailed it. I put an ad out that I would help people teach English. Now, the irony of that is I'm dyslexic and I have ADHD, so I can't even spell. And I managed to get a lot of Saudi nationals to come and work for me. And I learned a very valuable lesson that Saudis buy from Saudis. And we took we anyway without going into some of the confidential areas, but we nailed it. I then got appointed into the UAE for another year, and totally loved Abu Dhabi. 25 years ago, it was just starting to boom over there. And then my parents' divorce settlement came about, and so my grandmother said, "Hey, Christian, you better come home and look after your mama in the business." And so, because I love my grandmother unconditionally, and she passed away in 2017, I came back, gave up a very large salary, and came back. God knows where I'd be today, but came back and took about a $900,000 pay cut. It was great, and started working in the family's function center. That was lolly pink and had carpet on the walls
Mm.
to soundproof. Beautiful. Like sponge wash, French wash, classic of the '80s. And we took that from $300,000 a year to just shy of 4 million, 3.9. And then I started buying restaurants and bars and created some of the best restaurants and bars in the country. Some would argue, ahead of its time. I was very fortunate to be awarded at Parliament House, as in Parliament House in Canberra, the Young Achiever of the Year for the restaurant and catering industry. And I'm blessed to be alongside guys like Shannon Bennett, George Columbaris, and guys like Justin North. And so, a little Adelaide boy who never wanted to be in hospitality, being up against the Giants. And they're awesome people too. I've had the privilege of hanging out with some of these guys, and they're outstanding operators in their own mind, regardless of what the crap you read in the paper. But it's all about the pressure. That's what you learn. I then started a media company, my first media company out of three. Had a successful exit there. This is all while I'm running like 16 businesses. I started a tech company and then another tech company. We founded webmenu.com.au, which was the number one website in Australia by NetGuide. And then the shit hit the fan. All the hard work, the relationships, everything collapsed. And I was forced, the NAB lost $3 billion on the trading market. And so they went and caught in all their loans to people that they thought were at risk. And I got caught up in that. And so I was very fortunate. They told me I was very fortunate that they were going to give me the privilege to actually go and sell my shit rather than be wound up. And so I went about 18 months, and that was very painful. But learned some really valuable lessons there. And then GFC came, and all the VC money that was going to be awarded out got drained, and Webmenu lost its edge. Webmenu, by the way, was the first online restaurant guide pretty much in the world. Menulog was just starting to bubble up in the UK, and Uber hadn't even been created. So to give you perspective, that's, and I had two amazing founders, co-founders in that business, um, who've gone on to do amazing other things now. And so anyway, then I forced to close everything and basically became homeless, broke, and all this wonderful $30 million revenue and fortune that I had amassed and property portfolio was all gone. So and then that led me to starting an energy company with a former tech buddy who taught me a lot, XEY, chartered accountant. We spent doing that for 3 years. We took an energy company to the top 10 solar providers in Australia, selling only the very best quality German manufactured and engineered products, which we were the only company in the top 10 selling a very high end product. I was director of sales and marketing and later became the chief operating officer. That was pretty much the only time that I had a job in between. And then I started my own energy company looking at energy management systems and voltage regulators, and got right into the manufacturing and tech side, and then made money and started rebuilding myself, and then some idiot decided that it was a good idea to own a small bar again. No, actually, my best mate died, and one of my best mates died of a heart attack. And so we never saw our friends. So we decided to buy a small bar. Oh, tell you, I was partying pretty hard at 36. And then I was very fortunate. Some other things happened. And then I started a whole bunch of other companies, bought a hotel, bought another media company, exited that, bought another one. So I kind of went on to all these different industries, and eventually we tallied up 80 different companies. And amongst all that, I'm trying to be quick. Amongst all that, I became an adjunct professor at the University of Adelaide and was appointed the entrepreneur in resident uh, for ThinkLab, the incubator. And the incubator went on to be one of the most successful incubators in Australia within that 12-month period. We had an amazing team of startups, 66 startups in total, 40 mentors that we'd procured, that I'd called around from people that I'd done business with. One I was just on a message before. We're looking at going out to dinner. Mauchia, who owns Ecom Nation, a phenomenal entrepreneur and one of my best mates in the world. So yeah, we raised 189 million in 12 months, and yeah, there was a market cap forecasted value of $500 million in a little place called Adelaide that now is finally, one of the most recognised startup places in Australia. Some 6 or 7 years later, and I'd like to think, regardless of what people think now, in hindsight, that group at ThinkLab were the catalysts for that. The university's vision and all the really hardworking people that were in that incubator working with me, allowing me the privilege to lead them and provide them advice. And I know some of the startups like ResView, Tom Wellesby, what a gun. He's killing it, raising money, Life Whisperer, the Perigenes, and Jonathan Hall, like changing the landscape of embryo and AI. So many to mention, but they're just people that come to mind immediately. So yeah, then I went on and decided it was almost time to leave Adelaide. Some other shit happened, as always do. You if you're pushing the boundaries that hard, shit goes wrong. You also say
Yeah.
the wrong shit sometimes, and you know, unlike most people that are not under a microscope, I'm under a microscope, and you know what? I'm okay with that now. Um, I don't know. Maybe it's because I've made a lot of money again, so I can protect myself a lot more, or maybe it's because I've just grown up and I'm more humble about it. But I've also come to the conclusion that people will do and say whatever they want, Simone. But and it's like
Mm.
people who ask, I can't believe you've done all that. I've in 20 minutes, I've told you about 1/10 of what's actually happened, and I'm trying to do it quickly. And by the way, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm looking outside because I'm looking at a storm coming in, and I'm flying out tonight from Manila. So I don't want to be stuck at the airport looking at a crazy ass
Yeah.
typhoon rolling
But
in.
yeah, I think it's so fascinating that, it feels like it's a heart-led decision, right? And we talk about this before. We've talked about how you lead with your hard and how you have strategic decisions that you make. And I think it's just so interesting to unpack the journey. And really, that kind of leads into my second question of why advisory? Like, what was the moment in all of those things between the different ways that you've worked that you just went, no, this is what I want to do. I want to actually help people with what I've learnt and put it into this advisory?
Look, I think that if I, now with hindsight, I guess what I did in the investment banking world in that private equity side was give advice to increase EBIT. So even at a young age, I was giving it, but I was never taken seriously, even though I was making people bucket loads of money because I was young. And so, and everyone always said, you can't be an advisor until you have all the experience. And I'm like, okay, cool. And so I went out and got a bucket load of experience and then went, oh, I can't do it because I failed. Right. And so I was like, I failed. So who's going to listen to my advice? And then I tried to turn the tide on failure. And then everyone went, oh, yeah, you're the professor of failure. No, dickhead. I actually know how to learn from failure and turn it into success. And so, um, I think that for me was a tipping point. But really, the biggest tipping point was when I was appointed at the university and I realized how valuable my advice was to people who never would have gone the next step. And a lot of it is not the strategic nous that I have and the ability, as Karim says, one of our clients, that my gift is to be able to uncover shit people can't uncover, and I can do it really quickly. And I tend to agree, and then you got the imposter syndrome shit that creeps in, and that's what crept in at the uni. But then I
Mm.
was taught about imposter syndrome and I understood it. And you know what? That was the tipping point. After the university gig, I was like, shit, why am I spending all my time building businesses that I end up either not liking or um, I'm doing the same shit every day or trying to be an innovator, which I'm not an innovator. And
Mm.
then I kind of went, you know what? Let's sell everything up. And it was coincidence, right? Like, I'd another tipping point in my life that occurred. And I was like, bugger it, sell everything. And I sold every bricks and mortar business, everything I had invested except the property portfolio, the land developments, because I also own that shit. We're building, $5-10 million land developments in greenfield sites. Fuck knows why I did that too. Um, but but the reality of it is, I realized that as soon as I sold everything, I went, oh my God, we're in a really good position. I could now start this little mini advisory firm helping, large companies is where I immediately went to, anyone doing more than $2 to $5 million, because that was kind of an area that I'd played in a lot. And then started working out, wow, hang on a minute, there's all these little people that need my help who could never afford to have me. They couldn't afford to pay
Mm.
$10,000, $15,000 for the day to have me go and write their corporate strategies and uncover all the genius that these company owners found. And what I've later discovered is I love working vicariously on other people's businesses because I feel like they're mine. And so I can get in there and get my hands dirty beyond the advice and give them really big insights on operational stuff. There you are, you've bounced out. But so the key for me is, don't worry, I just kept talking. The key for me was Simone really understanding over the last 5-6 years, and she's gone again, but I'll just keep going. Over the last
Yeah,
5 or 6 years, are you
I'm
there?
here.
Are
I'm
you
here.
there? Okay, I don't know why, but it's there you are. So
Mm.
over the last 5 or 6 years, we've just kept unpacking because obviously I love to pivot and I love to adapt. That's
Mm.
another I think one of my biggest skill sets is actually the pivoting and the adapting. And so we've been able to kind of like build a business that tailors to all these people. And at the same time, that's kind of also our downside because then people don't really know who we help because they're like, you help everyone. Well, the reality of it is when you've had
Yeah.
80 ventures and you've had over 1,061 clients, you can help everyone if you've got half a brain. Like that's why I
Mm.
love coaches who go, oh, I've worked with 120 people, but I only look after this niche. Well, let me tell you something. Business is business. It's either service based or it's product based. And I actually got asked an
Mhm.
interesting question by a prospect who said, Christian, I really admire what you've done. I've done a lot of research on you. I've Googled you. I've seen the good, the bad, the ugly, the fantastic. What's the split between product and service based? And I was like, you're a smart guy. And he's an investor, right? And I was like, you're a smart guy. No, very few people have asked me that. And interestingly enough, I'm 80% service based and 20% product based. But the shit that I do in
Mhm.
product based is anything from large structural engineering, right, to product innovation, you know, product making, right? Like, a park bench. So,
Mm.
it's quite interesting when you get asked that question. So I think that's what allows us to be so diverse in our approach, Simone. But I think more importantly, I just really love what I do, and when you love what you do, you spend I spend a lot of time reading, and I keep upskilling
Yeah.
myself with skills. The problem that I have is I go too fast for most people, and so I am now learning to build systems and processes that better serve our clients, so I can work at their speed 80% of the time, and then I give them the magic 20%. And I think we saw
Mm.
that with the last game plan, which we did
Yeah.
last week with our clients, which really took what we do in growth school to another level. And I guess ironically, the evolution has now been growth school. I never was a big fan of school, but I did like its social element, and so we've created a school for the misfits and the entrepreneurs and the clever ones and the people who kind of
Mm.
know they could be and have and do more, and make it a really cool place to come and play hard and work hard and cry if you have to. We had a lot of tissues around.
Yeah.
People seem to cry a lot. I don't know why. I'm not that mean. I'm not that mean. Um, but we get shit done, and I think that's really important. And we do it
Mm.
without judgment, and I think that's what I really like. I won't put up with truancy, and I will issue Friday and Saturday detentions. Um, you know,
Mm.
and I have been known to expel people if they piss me off. So
Yeah.
yeah, it is kind of like a school, and it's all the bad shit that I used to love and hate. So anyway, there
Mm.
that's kind of my
Yes,
advisory.
something that really comes to me and what really shows up with me, as you know, I've worked in the professional development industry for a little while now and I've had exposure to lots of different coaches and mentors. And the thing that we've highlighted within our community is the sense of using we and our. And I see that as coming from you as well, of how invested you are into your clients' businesses. You kind of take it on like it is yours. You do really invest in that. Do you think that comes from your experience, or how do you think that comes to play? Obviously, you've had so much involvement with other people's ventures and your own. What is it about that mindset that you get into your client's business as if it's yours?
Look, I think when you truly love something, you care about it, and I know the pain points that people go through. I've been through it all. I wear my grit on my sleeve. Forget my heart. Like that's been shredded, right? I know the pain and suffering. I know the fact that business isn't sunshine and fucking rainbows, but I also know that it can be. And so I
Mm.
know how to lead someone to water, right? Because I know where the water is, and I also know that if we can't see it, we can probably dig for it if we know where, right? So, and I mean by the way, it's a metaphor. Like I have no idea where to fucking dig for water, um, but the whole idea is that I I kind of failed geology at school, I think, but I did enjoy squirting hydrochloric acid on quartz crystals. Um, but I think for me, when I guess, I think I made a point last meeting that we had last intensive. How the fuck do I know your business better than you do? And people were like, because you ask questions and they don't even know how to answer them sometimes. Like, guys, what the fuck? Your head's not in the game. And it's scary when, I can remember 30, 40 clients and my own companies. I don't know. Maybe that's a gift, or maybe it's because I care so much. I take a lot of
Mm.
notes, and I as I said, I work at a really crazy ass speed for most people, and I have really good memory recall. Now I don't know how long that amazing brain is going to last me for, because I didn't have that skill when I was at school, or at least I didn't think I did.
Mm.
But I somehow over the last 5 to 10 years, I've developed it, and I think it's true what they say. Even though the brain's not a muscle, it's like a muscle. If you push it hard enough, it starts to create different neurological pathways in order for you to do what you need to do. And I guess maybe I'm so used to being so resilient in so many areas that I've just built these extra neurological pathways. I have no idea. And when I say
Yeah.
that, that generally means that I'm kind of making shit up, right? Because I just look at it and go, it has to be something. I don't know what it is, and it's not because I'm
Mm.
also trying to dumb down the fact that I might be intelligent. I don't rate myself as intelligent. I hang around with people that are so much smarter than me, and maybe that's the other reason too. My inner circle are really incredibly gifted, super intelligent people, you know, and in my inner circle, by the way, I'm also referring to my clients. You know, our clients
Mm.
have, you know, they're all uniquely different, even the ones that cause me the great amount of grief. They have excellent ideas and they've got great businesses and they just make stupid decisions. And my job is there to
Yeah.
make sure that they don't do it and follow through only on the good stuff. That's, I think, what we provide them, Simone. And then, you know, you add the layers of you and Bonnie and Adrian and all the coaching team that we have. I mean, you know, people, when they think they're buying me, they don't realize that they're actually buying an entire organization. That's why we've gone and now
Mm.
called it a school, because it's like, well, we're not a university, we're a school. You know, we've got lots of faculty members that'll help you get from A to B fast. And if you can get to A to B, we'll help you get from B to C. You know, there's no shortcuts to Z. That's the difference.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. All right, I've got one more question for you, and we're going to wrap this up. I really would love just to share, for you to share with us, what does the next 5 years look like for you? What is your vision of what's coming in the future for you specifically in terms of business, in terms of entrepreneurship? What are you looking to achieve?
Look, I've got some really good investments that are playing out at the moment. Uh, some have been in play for 5 years, and you know, I'm hopeful that the time and the money investment on those will come to fruition. But my greatest plan is actually building out, you know, BGM, building out the business growth mindset. Um, you know, uh, we're now rebranding our original program into Evolve, which was Evolve into Growth School, and that's been in the pipeline for 4 or 5 months. So it's not new; it's just it's taken us that long. And then we're going to release Business School, and then we're going to release Mindset School that form the business growth mindset. That was always the vision when I set it up. And I my first ever book that I published that went on to get into the top 100 bestsellers in all the world in hard copy. Again, this little guy from Adelaide who can't spell, and I think it was number 93 for a long time, and to be up there with some of the best authors in the country was amazing, and in the world, sorry. And I'm publishing. I've got 3 new books that I'm working on. 2 are finished. One is it's getting there. Um, and again, this is putting down what I know so people can access it and read it and get an understanding of what it's like to be in business, and what it's like to be resilient. Since then, I've also published 2 other books. But I think really building a community of highly functioning misfits in business, right? Like, the doers, the sayers, the people that take action. I want to build a freaking tribe, and I want to lead that tribe. I want to be, their chairman. Like, to me, that is, some people would say that's me being egotistical. It's not. I truly want to, because I want to be able to help them, and I want to learn from them, because the more I learn from them, the more I can feed back into that feedback loop. And so for me, it's really bringing to fruition everything. And, we've built a very clever ecosystem, right? So, there's the high end advisory firm in Argentum Ligno that owns all of these other products and services, and then we've got the school. And we built LWP, Live with Purpose, last year, and it's just sitting there waiting to be blown up in Mindset School. And I'm creating excellent partnerships and collaborations there. So the future is that's where it is, Simone. And if we want to,
Mm.
have a very clear goal, I'd love a thriving, bustling community of, a thousand is the number that comes to mind in all the
Mhm.
various components. But I also am not driven by that number. I am driven by the result that we can achieve our clients. Right? That's
Mm.
it. That's actually what I'm driven by. Because if I make that my focus, and you can testify to this, if I can make that my focus, then our wealth grows. Right? If you perform, you get more students. Right? Why do the top schools have waiting lists? Because they're the top schools. And what's the measure of the
Mm.
top schools? Results, right? Getting
Yeah.
into university. So I've got that same philosophy that, we can go out there and we can get people the results. And we can't guarantee results because I can't guarantee your effort, but I can certainly do
Mhm.
everything in my power to kick your ass to put in the effort, right? And if you fail, you will fail spectacularly, right?
Mm.
And that's fantastic. You'll then even know that that wasn't for you. Or guess what? You'll start again more intelligently and then scale like crazy. So, to me, um, it is just about effort. And if we can build a tribe of people that put in the effort and have the grit, well, then we're winning. Simone, that's it. That's the
Yeah.
goal.
Yeah. That's really cool. That's exciting. There's such within that, and I think, just it goes to show the diversity that we have, not only in you and your expertise, but what we have inside of our community too, which is the Heart Center for me. As you know, community is everything for me,
Yeah.
and I'm excited that I was able to sort of bring you on that journey when I said this is it. This is what we need the community to
And
keep
you
it
did.
all
And,
together as well.
that's why everyone that's in our team is an integral part of the tribe that we're creating. I think you got to drop your ego when you're building a company, right? And you got to listen to what other people have got to say because they're going to be and have and do better than you because that's their game plan. And from your experiences that you brought in about building a community, we've built that. And God, say anything bad within the community about anyone, and you'll have everyone going in for you in a really positive and constructive way. And to me, that is just inspirational, 100% inspirational.
Mm. Yeah,
Now I got to go because
absolutely.
I've got a meeting here in
Yes.
Manila outside this boardroom, and then I've got to go
Uh,
and pack, and then I've got another client call, and then I've got to get to the airport, and then I've got to avoid the typhoon, and I got to fly overnight, come back
Get
home, and see
back
my
to
beautiful
Australia.
family. Yeah,
Amazing. Kristian Livolsi, thank you for sharing this episode with me. I know it was something that was a little out of your comfort zone when I said I want to unpack all things Kristian Livolsi. So, in the short time that we've had, thank you for giving us the most succinct version. I feel like more questions are going to come from this, and there's going to be like, what is this piece, or where did that lead to, and how is that? So, if you do have any questions, please feel free to hit us up on our social media channels or get in touch with me directly. So, Kristian Livolsi, have a wonderful and safe trip back to Australia, and we will see you next week live on the hot seat.
thank you. I'm just going to finish it because I don't think we've got an outro to play. See everybody, have fun, and I'm not sure if this finishes while we're still here.